Over the last year, I tested hundreds of different weight loss habits and discovered what the best ones are. So if you want to guarantee 2025 is the year you look your best, these are the only 5 habits you should be taking into the next year. But here's the thing. Habits are hard to form, and if you try and form all 6 at once, you can guarantee you won't form any. So to make this as easy as possible for you to win, I'm going to start with what I think is the single most impactful habit for you to build. And if you just invested energy into this, you'd see a huge improvement to your life. And that's planning tomorrow, today. The tough thing about fitness, it's entirely dependent on self-motivation. Yes, you can have a trainer, and yes, you can go to fitness classes, but at the end of the day, it's you that has to get yourself out of bed, and it's you that has to lift those dumbbells. This ruthless dependence on self-motivation is why so many men start their fitness routine only to fall off just a few days later and feel like crap. So what's the single best habit you can build to improve your motivation, discipline, and ability to stick to a workout routine? I call it planning tomorrow today. And I don't mean that typical planning of, oh, I'm gonna start working out tomorrow. I mean organized, focused planning. Take 2 guys. One of them says, I'm sick of being overweight, I'm gonna start exercising and looking after my diet. The other says, I'm sick of being overweight, I'm gonna start meal prepping in the weekends and working out 4 times a week in the morning. Who do you believe is gonna stick to his word? The tiny habit of spending 5 minutes every night to sit down and look at tomorrow's schedule and just ask yourself, what one thing if I got done would move me closer to my goal has outsized returns. It not only clears any stress or overwhelm you have around achieving your goals, but it also improves your ability to stick to your word. And as a guy, the ability to say you're going to do something and then actually going and doing it is extremely powerful and quite rare in this day and age. So even if it's just planning a short 5-minute walk in the morning and then actually doing it, the trust you start building with yourself is going to be invaluable. The second habit, which pairs perfectly with the first, is make the most of your mornings. If you want to follow in the footsteps of the highest athletes and the best businessmen, the straight killers in life, you need to start making the most of your mornings. But here's the thing. I'm not going to tell you to go and make your bed or do affirmations in the mirror, because that's not what's going to loosen off the belt. You need to go straight for the guts. And that means lifting the heaviest rocks first. Let me show you. Now, I want you to imagine that this jar here represents your day. The big rocks represent your largest, most important tasks. The smaller pebbles represent your smaller tasks. And the dirt represents entertainment or distraction. Now, I could fill my day up with distractions like this, but we wouldn't be able to fit anything else in. So instead, why don't we try this? If we start with the largest tasks first, we have enough space to fit in the smallest tasks and even fit in some of the dirt. Starting with your biggest tasks first doesn't mean you have to sacrifice anything else. If anything, it means you get to have your cake and eat it too. And look, we've cleared out everything and still had time for enjoyment. Imagine what your life would look like if every day looked like this. So if you really want to skyrocket your progress, combine making the most of your mornings with planning tomorrow today, and you'll become an absolute killer in no time. Now I'll mention here, these 2 habits I just talked about are going to be 80% of what you should focus on. These are the big movers in losing the weight and keeping it off. These next 3 habits are tiny micro habits that take less than a minute to do, but will make the process of losing weight far easier and more reliable. And the most important one, daily weigh-ins. Let me show you something. I've been doing fitness for almost 7 years, and these are just some of the daily weigh-in sheets I've gone through over the years. Goal setting is incredibly important, but for me, setting and sticking to goals has always been really vague. People online were always telling me to set weekly, monthly, and yearly goals, but I'd set a yearly goal and not even a week later, I'd completely forget about it. I found simply picking a number on the scales that I wanted to reach, pinning a piece of paper on the wall, and making a habit to weigh myself every morning and note it down was more than enough to keep me motivated and focused on my goals. But that's not even the reason you should start doing this, because standing on the scales every morning actually has a significant impact on your behavior. Let's say you're trying to drop 5 kgs. You'll either stand on the scales and your weight will be down, which will motivate you to continue with your program because it's proof that it's working, or your weight will be slightly up, which then will make you conscious of the actions you're taking, and you'll start reviewing why it might be up. This simple 10-second habit will start serving as your compass. Yeah, you can and probably should take some progress photos and do circumference measurements, but that just seems like so much more of a hassle than standing on the scales and writing down the number. Habit 4, cook or prepare all of your meals on kitchen scales. Of course, we need to talk about dieting and being the most important thing in losing weight. Surely there's a 1-minute habit we can build to make dieting so much easier. Yes. And no, I'm not going to get you to start counting calories, but we are going to use one of these. Here's the thing, these big companies do not give a flying fudge whether you get fat eating their foods. They will cram as many calories into as little serving size as possible if it makes the food more creamy or more fluffy. We can't stop that from happening, but we can stop ourselves from overeating it. And how do we do this? We start cooking or preparing all of our meals on kitchen scales. Let me show you why this is so important. I've got 2 smoothies. Smoothie A has 150 grams of oats, 250 mils of milk, 30 grams of peanut butter, and a teaspoon of cocoa powder. Smoothie B has 165 grams of oats, 280 ml of milk, 40 grams of peanut butter, and a teaspoon of cocoa powder. Essentially the same smoothie, but 130 calorie difference. Now this might not seem like a big deal, but this is only one meal of potentially 4. And if you're even 400 calories over your maintenance, in 2 weeks, you'll be 2 pounds heavier. So by simply starting to cook or prepare your meals on kitchen scales, you can get a really good idea on how much everything weighs and how much over you're going on certain meals. But there's a good chance if you are pursuing weight loss, you will eventually have to count some of your calories. And this is a good way to start getting those early reps in and getting a feel of how it all works. And as a good rule of thumb, if any of the foods you're eating has over 5 or more ingredients, stick to 1 or 2 serving sizes max. Like I said at the start of this video, habits are really hard to form, and humans hate change. We like to stick to what's most comfortable, and if you start waking up early and going for morning walks, your body and brain are gonna think, hold up, what's this guy think he's doing? Your brain is gonna start sabotaging your habits and putting things in the way so you start to forget what actions you wanna take. This happens to me all the time, but one of the biggest game changers in holding myself accountable to doing the actions I know I want to do deep down is writing a note. If you think sitting down and planning a task for tomorrow sounds like a good idea, then write a note. Put it somewhere obvious, like your toothbrush or your pillow. Use emotional words, call yourself a pussy. Whatever it takes for you to read the note and think to yourself, all right, let me sit down for 5 minutes and plan out tomorrow. Make it easier for yourself because it's tough. And that's why guys who break through and make the changes are so rare. Now I know I didn't talk much about diet and exercise specifically in this video because there's just so much detail involved. Luckily, I already got a video lined up for you that covers all that detail. Hope this video helped. Talk soon. Cheers, gents.